Hey guys, welcome back to Starfield with Bad Day Guy Gaming. Today we're doing something a little different. This is my 1 week review and gripe and complain fest. Now, things are looking a little different because while it's only been a week IRL, I've actually already made a lot of videos ahead of what you guys are seeing at the time this post. I'll try to be somewhat spoiler free if I can, but there's some things I'd like to talk about. The good and the bad that I've seen so far, and what we just experienced was part of it, because that's a poison gas vent coming up out of the ground. But let me point out, we're sitting on top of a 10-foot tall concrete platform, and the gas vent, even though rocks and trees and everything disappear, the gas vents stay. And in fact, because of the procedural generation, they move around a little bit. Earlier, this gas vent was over here. This gas vent was back there in the corner. Now, these guys have sort of migrated up, and I'll explain a little bit of what I mean by that. Procedural generation. How does this work? Well, this is my best buddy robot, Vasectomy. He likes to get in my face. How the procedural generation works. This is a little loud. I'm going to go up indoors where it's a little bit quieter. The wind is a little heavy out here. Please forgive the impromptu tour of the place. I'll try to keep my head down a little bit. And yeah, something else. We'll get to lighting in a moment. Procedural generation, how this works. When you come into a planet, you do a planetary scan. That shows you the zones of where the resources are. You'll see a couple of pre-marked locations sometimes on a planet. An example of this planet, where I'm on, there was a deserted mineral plant, and there was a science outpost. Those were the only two locations on this planet. Now, what happened was when you select a point, either one of these, the science outpost is made by Bethesda, it is handcrafted, but the environment around it is randomized. Now, the planet, when it is looked at from space, like here, you can see the biomes. Think Minecraft. Desert biome, where the beige is. The light green is savanna. Heavier green is forested. And then if you look at some of the parts at the bottom where it's dark green, this is jungle. Ice caps, of course, snow. But there's multiple biomes on planets. Well, any planets with atmospheres and any kind of life on them. And as you can see here, I have fully surveyed this planet. There is a bit of a catch on how the procedural generation works. There's certain zones that are mountainous that you see here, but exactly what the mountains are is procedurally generated, just like exactly what the forests are is procedurally generated. By that I mean, just because there are trees, like 3 trees standing next to each other at a particular point, does not mean there will always be 3 trees standing at that point. When you land your spaceship, that activates the procedural generation for the terrain. It randomizes and places any vegetation, any animals, anything in the area. It also procedurally generates points of interest. Those could be buildings, caves, landmarks, anything that is usually with a marker that is a point of interest. Those do not exist on the world until you land on it. Now, there's a catch. If you land on a point like I landed at a point I landed at the science post that procedurally generated the area, and then I saw something in the distance, so I got on my ship, took off, tried to land just above it. Turns out I was only landing a short distance away from the science outpost, because you don't land exactly where the mark is. You land at whatever is an appropriate landing spot in the area. Where I landed, the spot that I saw was only 500 meters away instead of 1,700 meters away. So I ran over, and that is where I built my base, because I found resources that I wanted in a geographic area that I liked. Now, that geographic area, the specific ground, trees, different things like that, that is procedurally generated. So if you go to the exact same spot on a planet that you're playing, it can look completely different. The hills, the ground, how things are dispersed, it is different every time, and that is procedurally generated when you land. Oh, excuse me. Now let's talk about one of the other things that people tend to talk about. Can I land and run completely around a planet? Technically, yes, but I can tell you exactly why you do not want to do that. When you land, there are zones or cells, just like in games like Fallout 4, the different cells load as you're running. Well, the cells in this game are exquisitely large. They are very, very large. But the catch is, if you leave that cell and continue running, the terrain will generate, the forests, the animals, all of the natural elements, but no points of interest. No buildings will spawn in, because those only happen when you land a ship. No other points of interest, no caves, no nothing will spawn in unless you're landing a ship. So if you were to land here, and you would have a circled area up to several thousand meters of points of interest that will spawn, but then if you took off running and ran completely around the planet, you will see nothing but plants, animals, and terrain. Now, if you're on a planet with no atmosphere, no life, you will get nothing but terrain. And that is why you never want to run too far. Run until points of interest stop, and then fast travel back, and then fly to a new location. I can give you an example. I went to the deserted mining plant. This is in a jungle area. But then I decided to take off and land farther south. And then that spawned in a bunch of things in that area. So now look, this is spawned in, this is spawned in, but there's nothing over here. So let's create a landing point. Travel. And now I have landed. Make sure there's no dangerous animals around, because yes, this is a forest bite. That's a dangerous animal. Now those guys are hunting crickets. They look more like praying mantis, of course. They can one-shot kill almost anything, and this is a forest biome, and they love forest biomes. But yeah, they could just run up and whack me and I'm dead. But if I step out of the ship here, see, there's these little flat spots at various places around the planet, and this is where your ship lands. My actual marker could have been anywhere else, but the ship will actually land in a close available point. In actuality, what happens is the game spawns this little flat point, and then it spreads out the terrain afterwards. So nice big cliffs, hills, rocks, all of this stuff is generated because I landed. Now watch this. There's the resources that were on the planetary survey map. They are here. Oh, is that? Oh, that's a different animal. Okay, they're okay. But now if you look, see, point of interest, unknown, life signs, point of interest, ship landing site. That's 300 meters away. Point of interest, unknown. That is a structure. Structure. And another structure. Now, over this hill, there could be other structures and things that are not in direct line of sight of the scanner. All of this populated in because I landed my ship here. Now, here's the cool thing. Now that I've landed my ship here, all of this is permanent. The algorithm that made all of this is completed and is set, and that is now saved. So if you come back here, the terrain and everything will be regenerated by the algorithm, which will be mostly the same. Now, by mostly, let me explain. This bush, this little fern, and this tree and this little twig tree might be rearranged. This tree could be over here, this bush could be over there, there could be no bush, there could be this little scrub instead of this bigger bush. It will be generally the same, but not exactly. Now, if you were to come back here and look, these 4 little ferns might be somewhere else. These rocks might be in a different pattern. It is mostly the same, but not exactly. That large cliff will most likely be there because it will already have in the algorithm the elevation and everything set up there. So as it creates it, the world will stay mostly the same, but not exactly. It won't be anything you will notice. Oh, there's another one over there. But things will be mostly the same. Now, when you come back, there's a ship landing post over there. Oh, looks like the cricket's got a kill. There will be a life signs that will most likely always stay. The ship landing site will be there until you investigate. The structures will be there. Now that structure is there, but exactly what the structure is might be there, but until you get to an appropriate distance, it won't spawn in anything like raiders and loot and stuff like that. That is done as you get closer. Now, 535 meters, it might already be there. I don't know, but I've seen from a distance things like raiders and spacers spawn in at about an 800-meter distance through a sniper scope when I could see the facility. I was literally walking with a sniper scope and I saw them spawn in at around 700 to 800 meters. So most likely there are people there spawned in, but not necessarily loot and stuff like that yet. And that's the cool thing, because when you come back over time, stuff can respawn. Now, the ship landing site, that could be a ship with people, or, well, let me just do a quick little, go to photo gallery. Okay, here is a Class B ship that I found just sitting there. Again, with the algorithm, notice there's no grass underneath it. That is because this ship was spawned in on nice little flat ground as part of the terrain spawn in. There's no enemies there at all. The problem is I cannot fly the ship because it is a Class B and I still only have a Class A pilot's license. So when I get to Class B, I know exactly where it is. I'm going back to get it. And here's a Class C ship that was just sitting there. Again, nice flat ground spawned in, and this is way up in the peaks of the mountains. And yeah, Class C ship just sitting there. Nobody around, but there were a lot of those crickets, because as you could tell, it's forested in the area. There were a lot of those attack crickets. I'm assuming the crew died to crickets. So yeah, once the terrain spawns in, it is there to stay. Now that is part of the catch. Let me go back to the planet here, getting where it's safe, because yeah, those crickets, I'm serious, they are bad. They are not anything you want to mess with.
I'm listening.
Okay, let's get back. Now, when you go to the planet, every planet you can have 8 landing areas, right? You can technically do more, but if you have 8, you can always have those 8 markers and go back. If you do a 9th, then the very first marker you placed will disappear. In this case, I want that to happen eventually, because I am parked right next to my base. Now, so what you want to do is you want to spread out your landing zones so that they are not overlapping and you're wasting potential spawn in. So if you spawn in sort of evenly spaced around the planet, what happens is you spawn this nice big circle of interest points around, and those interest points stay. Once those interest points are loaded in and they stay, you can revisit them again and again and again. An example, the deserted mineral plant. That is a plant, even though there's no helium-3 on this planet, that plant has massive storage containers of helium-3. I have harvested an entire lifetime's worth of helium-3 just by making trips to there without even having to do a single bit of mining. Now, there are bad guys there, but the helium-3 spawns in faster than they do. So every third time I go, I have to kill a few pirates and then load up my shit with helium-3 and fly back. But same with all these other points. I can fly to all of these other points wherever I want to go with the landing sites, and all of their buildings and everything will be there. And you can essentially farm one planet for everything you will ever need, minus the occasional thing. Now, let's get back home. So, speaking of this was the picture I just showed you. I would like to point out, any photos you take with the photo editor will become load screens. It randomizes them and puts them in. So, that was the Class C ship that I found and the image I took, and I got a load screen for it. Now, let's talk about mining and resources and all the things that you will need. In my base that I picked primarily for the geographical area and the inclusion of two resources, iron and aluminum. Now, I have on this particular planet the deserts, which that is the desert biome. Huge amounts of aluminum. Almost this whole mountain, because there's more over there, is made of iron. Not aluminum, iron. The mountains in the desert biome are made of iron. The plains are a mix of two things. You have the liquid chlorosalines, which are mined with a liquid miner. And then the second thing I have here are aluminum fields. I have massive fields of aluminum, which is a very important resource. And then mixed around, I have other things. I have water, I have chlorine. There are various argon gas seeps, all different kinds of things to get a lot of different minerals in this area. So I could just constantly mine and mine and mine. And every time I log out and come back in, most of it has repopulated. Now, you do have to be careful on this planet because there are toxic gas seeps. There you go. That's what you experience with that. And the problem with the procedural generation is every time I leave and come back, there are minor differences. Like this particular little red tree was not here before. Now it is. The seeps will slowly creep and move around. As I showed earlier, some of these little gas vents and things tend to move around. Oh, see, this time it's moved over a little bit more. It's almost right in front of the door again. So the procedural generation moves things around tiny bits, but mostly it is the same. The cool thing about the procedural generation is if you use the mechanics properly, you can literally farm one planet for everything you need. Don't just fly to a planet, hit a couple spots, and leave. There can be huge amounts of stuff on that planet. When it comes to the resources you're gathering, I have 8 storage containers One is barely full because there are meters on them. One is completely empty. Even though I have way more resources than I will ever need. Liquids. 3 of them. 2 are full. 1 about halfway. Same thing for gases. Looks like they are completely full, and I manually fill those. That's my helium-3 that I get from that one plant. And so that's 450 helium-3 that just took me like a couple hours to get. Manually, not even counting harvesters. My harvesters keep me completely filled with everything that I would need. Excuse me. When it comes to base building, anyone who played Fallout 4 knows how hard to learn in the beginning, but how versatile and fun base building was in Fallout 4. Here, it is not so great. Oh yeah, by the way, let me point out, I am on a moon circling a ringed gas giant with several other moons around it. So the day-night cycle is weird. When it does get to be night, when the gas giant is fully lit by the sun, it is almost as bright as day during the night. But when all go dark, it is as dark as can be. Now, again, as I was saying, the resources, you end up getting much more than you will ever need. I did have to go to another planet to get some titanium because all of the building containers used more, and there's very little titanium on this planet. I mean, I found like 4 or 5 individual little manual bits to mine, and that was like it. And that was from a ton of looking. So I just went to a planet that had a lot of it, spent 15 minutes, and just mined enough to build everything that you see. Now, when you're building things, I don't even have a second outpost. That is actually going to be coming in a future video. I built this entirely offline because this was my learning process. So when I get the second one, I will link this one to it, so then you guys can watch me build everything. Now, to give you an idea, when you guys are watching this, and this goes to video live, I am at episode 8. So all in all, I had about 10 hours into the game. What you're looking at here is closer to 30 hours into the game, because shipbuilding broke my brain, and base building broke my brain. It took me a while to figure it out, primarily because of the controls. In typical Bethesda fashion, half of the controls that you need to know in order to do anything are not listed. If you go to the build menu, please forgive my spaghetti. If you go to the build menu and you want to build something, you have your basic controls. Now you can switch between 3 different sleeping bags to futons. You can switch between the tables. You can do between the different sections or build categories, and then build different things there. So this is reasonably okay. But then check out what happens if you select an actual item. So like there, delete R, tapping R, nothing happens. That is because if you want to delete that, you have to hold R. And if you hold R, then you can delete it. Well, no, it doesn't say anywhere. It just has all these options. And then there's other little options that are completely hidden. So like you build, this is one of the mechanic building devices. And yes, let's check this out. This builds different items, right? But if you go into the build menu and you go to these, there, simple fabricator, and there are 11 of them. If you notice on the top left, it says at the bottom of the little list there, produces adaptive frame. 2, produces manifold, relays, magnets, coolant, pressure tanks, monopropellant, textiles, gauges, rheostats, zero wire. So you can see all the things that it makes. Well, one of the things that might be a little confusing is if you go up to this one, you hit E to activate menu. Yeah. You can just change this to make whichever one you want, right? Up on the top right, it shows you what you need. You would link to those containers. And so, yeah, you don't have to build 11 of these. You can build one and have it produce whatever you want to have it to produce at a given time. If you need reactive frames, which is what I have it making, so it's making reactive frames. If I need more reactive frames, all I have to do is take them out of there, put them in here. Right now I have it linked, so they're going in automatically, which is why this is filling up. But you can make reactive frames till you have enough, switch this to make the next thing, switch it to make something else, switch it to make something else. You don't have to have all 11 of these, and nowhere explains that to you. Another little thing is, I don't know if you noticed, the name of my base is Margaritaville, because may he forever fly in the stars. Jimmy Buffett just passed away, so in his honor, I named my base, which is R here on this. As you can see, it is Margaritaville. So you can rename your base, but most people do the going into the base building menus, looking around, and all you have to do is walk up to your little outpost station here, and it is pretty easy to rename your base, so you can do that. Again, with the deleting different things by pressing and holding R, you do have to be careful. I can show you an example. Let's go into the build menu. Oh, like here. I can see how the tower is highlighted, see how this is highlighted? Well, this is attached to the tower. If you delete this light that I've placed on here, half the time it will delete just the concrete base of the tower. I don't know why it does that, but it does that. So you have to constantly save and be ready to go back and fix things that you have built that are not working correctly. One of the other things you have to be careful of is, well, again, the terrain generation. Sometimes things you thought were taken care of are not, such as you can build a landing pad and you can have some toxic gas seeping up through it if there's a gas vent under it. Sometimes it's okay to deal with that. Like in this case, it's near the engine, so I just pretend that's exhaust from the engines, and I get a little too close, and that's a problem. This new one that's popped up by the door here, though, as long as I kind of run fast along the outside edge, that's not a problem. It may end up moving around to the front of the door, at which then it will be a problem. But check this out. Once again, let's go to photos. Yes, that is a landing pad. It is actually, when I originally placed the, this is the transfer pad to transfer between different planets. And yeah, as you can see, a tree spawned in the middle of it. When I had saved, logged out, logged back in, restarted the game, and came in to see this. Yeah, Bethesda, you gotta fix this. If you build something and it knocks down a tree so you can build it, the tree can't come back. In this case, there was no tree in the beginning. I just came in and Bethesda's procedural generation decided it wanted a tree there, even if there wasn't one there to begin with. Now, sometimes the procedural generation does interesting things that's kind of cool. In this case, when I was playing around building, there were all these trees. And I specifically built this habitat because this is going to be the home for my botanist. You know, she basically lives in a tree house surrounded in the trees kind of thing. Well, when I first built it, yeah, it wasn't this. These trees were strictly outside, just like these. In fact, I had windows here. And then I paused the game for a little while, and then when I came back, trees were poking through. So I ended up replacing this wall with a solid wall, but this actually kind of works. Once I had saved properly the game, then this has stayed this way permanently, and I want it for a purpose because, as I said, this is going to be my botanist home. I'm going to have her bed over here in this corner. This is going to be her living room and kitchen area. So I'm going to put a couch up against here and a whole bunch of potted plants and things around it, so this greenery will blend in with the potted plants and look like part of the display. And then I'm going to put a little kitchen area, and actually the kitchen area is probably going to be over here real small, and then a little desk and work area here, and then upstairs is going to be nothing but plants that she takes care of and waters because she loves plants, and that's what I'm going for. Give you an idea, I already have her picked out who she is, I just can't afford her yet. Okay, now speaking of different biomes and things, I'm going to get a botanist. Oh, see, this is nighttime. This is my primary that my moon here is orbiting. But as you can see, it is extremely bright at night thanks to that. Now, if you look at the planets in the game, the planets move. They're rotating around the sun. There are 4 moons on this planet. I am one of them. Those moons rotate around. So right now, you can't see any of those moons, but they are out there, and I have had a point in which I have had them all in the sky, and this sky full, and so it is even brighter. It is as bright as daylight out here. Now, as I was saying with the procedural generation, how all of this is a little bit different, but once you get your base and everything built, it pretty much stays, except for the occasional marching tree. So with these hills, I'm going to have my botanist use this hillside here for a bunch of greenhouses and different things like that, because if I switch to resources, there are water seeps right here. Figure the water for the greenhouses. I'm going to create some little camping like little areas out here, like where the guys work and hang out under the nice trees. Over here on the savanna side, again, we've got water and a few various places around here. So with all these trees in the savanna, and there's already some animals and things around, I am going to have my animal husbandry over here near the plains and the animals on that side a little bit more. If I ever need extra storage space, I'm going to turn some of this center area into storage containers for the animals and the greenhouses that'll be producing all my biologics. And we'll have to see what other building options as I level up go, because yeah, I'm still pretty low, and most everything that we make requires higher levels, so I'm still getting there. But again, the biggest complaint that I have about building is not the terrible lighting. Whoever made the Fallout 4 Better Lights mods, please give this game a look. It's not the harsh lighting for the exteriors. Oh. It is probably one of the dumbest things that is traditional Bethesda. Anyone who's ever noticed the street lights in Fallout 4 will know where I'm going with this. Here you have a room. Nice lights shining down. right? You have a hallway, nice lights. And then you walk into, let me turn my flashlight off. Yeah, pitch black dark. You see lights, but everything's dark, right? The whole place is dark. This is my home. I've got my navigation table, my bedroom, I've got my kitchen, all my groceries, I've got a nice management console. I even have an assistant I'm going to be bringing in soon who's going to be some of the workers for the spaceport, or for the resources and everything. But yeah, everything's pitch black. Do you want to know why everything's pitch black? And yes, just to let you know, I've stored and rebuilt the tower like a dozen times, right? Yeah, I got a couple of guns protecting because, again, there is wildlife and some of them can be a little mean. See if I go up top here. Nothing. Now, sometimes the lights are shining they're nice and shiny, they're just shining straight up. Sometimes I'll have one shining down, some shining up, some completely out. This time they're completely out. But check this out. Yeah, see the lights in this house? The ones that I said were, it was all nice and dark in this one, it's because these guys are shining up. Right, check this out. See, this light is shining down. These lights are shining up. See? Bethesda, you need to fix your lighting. And no, I am on ultra settings. I've reloaded the game. I'm on a 3060 Ti graphics card. Everything. One of the things I'm about to try soon is the DLSS mods, which will, from what I understand, has a lot of graphical settings and things with that I'm hoping will fix some of these lighting issues, because, yeah, this is terrible. I've had all different kinds of lights be reversed. Now, my light posts here, most of the ones like this, these work fine. Just the light is horrible and terrible, especially the industrial lights. Now, the thing is, you can't move these up higher. It's not like they make a bigger, softer light. If I move this up near the top, this light here up near the top, it just won't even shine on the ground. It's like there's nothing. The light is way harsh and the range is way short. So you'll have to, that is about as low as I can move it to where it would actually light up on the ground. Same thing with these guys. The lighting is horrible. All of the light sourcing is horrible. And here, let me show you another little thing. Let me get to my pistol here. Now, the planet looks amazing. The planet rotates, it changes, the lighting on it spins, everything looks great. But you see the rings? Yeah. It only does it on the rings, not on anything else. And check out the tree. Watch. See the tree on the rings at the top there? I've checked, I've played with all of the settings, I've done absolutely everything, and yeah, that's just the rings. That is horrible. So, for all the great things that the game has to offer, there's still a lot of things that need work. So, this has been a very basic gripe about how the planets work, how the procedural generation works, how the building works, things I like, things I don't like. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Thank you guys for letting me vent. I hope you learned a little bit here. I'm going to have other videos about other aspects of the game, different rants, raves, and general reviews. I've got shipbuilding already made that is, well, a little bit more rant and rave, but I'm actually going to redo that one because I've discovered some new secrets. So it was supposed to be preceding this video, but it's now going to be coming after this video. So until then, guys, this is Bad Day Guy Gaming, signing off.